right, guys. I'll go ahead and get things started here. It's a little after 1 p.m. Central Time. Thanks for listening to our third installment this week. For reintroductions, my name is Jen Chaney. I'm the Senior Director of Franchise Development for Right at Home. My focus is on resale opportunities. I help our franchise owners that are looking to list their business for sale. And then on the flip side, I'm also the one that helps all of the buyers who inquire about those resale opportunities. I also help our existing franchise owners that are looking to expand as well. Wear many different hats here, but that's the main one that I wear. So Chuck, Trevor, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Chuck Pretner. I am one of the development directors here at Right at Home. Looking forward to re-engaging with everyone to talk about the Right at Home business model as well as really what's going on with your life. It is now a good time to start your own business, maybe make a career change.
Yeah, and I'm Trevor Steenholt. I'm also one of the development directors here at Right at Home, and I'm Chuck's counterpart. So yeah, we look forward to working with you guys that are interested in maybe becoming entrepreneurs and taking control of your own destiny here.
My name is Jon Searles. I'm a former franchisee with the Right at Home system and now currently work for corporate Right at Home.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's the sound of me listening. Hi, I'm Eric Little, Chief Development Officer for Right at Home, and glad to be with you all today.
Okay.
All right.
So you guys can get started.
All right. Thanks, Jen. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the last installment, as you said, Jen, John and I know each other, and so that familiarity will probably come through in our conversation today. So, John, you may remember the first. We've done 3 of these this week. The first one was just all about what are your options with career change. You can find a job, you can keep your current job, you can own an independent business, you can go buy a franchise. And so that was sort of the first one. The second one on Wednesday with you was really all about your experience. You've got a unique perspective because you've been a corporate world employee, you've been an independent business owner, you have been a franchise owner with Right at Home, and then you've sold businesses as well. And so and now you work for the corporate office. And so your perspective is really unique. And so for those of you that haven't seen it yet, that was the second installment that is out there and available for viewing now. And then today, John, we're gonna talk about Right at Home and your experience mostly with as a franchisee. And so I think I'm just gonna start and just have you talk about, just to make sure in case anybody is listening, or listening to this on a recorded basis, or for any of those people that might be listening live, can you just give us a high level overview of what Right at Home is and the services that the franchisees provide?
Yeah, Right at Home is at its core in-home care and assistance, primarily for seniors, although, most offices can also service any adult based on, if there's licensing issues within their state. But we provide in-home care and personal assistance, which is not just companion and housekeeping, but stretches all the way into what we call touch care, where it might be bathing, dressing, ambulation assistance. We've had clients that have been bedridden, clients that deal with just a wide variety of diseases or age-related issues that come as we age, where they just need extra help. So it's just a wide variety of things that we can actually do under the Right at Home banner. Basically all non-medical, although there are some medical options as well, but that requires a different level of licensure and a different level of training that some of our offices do. But for the most part, at our core, we're in-home care and assistance, and primarily for seniors.
So as I mentioned, thank you for that, by the way. As I mentioned, you've been a franchisee. You already knew a lot of the franchisees because you were a franchisee for 7 years, right? Is that right? You were
7 years, right?
Yeah. So you just in that experience, you got to know a lot of the owners, and then now, even as a corporate office employee, I know you're probably talking to some as well. So you know a lot of them. It's safe to say, I think. So having gone through the process of becoming a franchisee yourself, and knowing these other folks in the system that also went through that same process, I mean, why do you think, from your perspective, why are people joining Right at Home? Why do they want to be a Right at Home franchisee?
Well, all the personalities of all the owners are not the same, right? We're all different people from different backgrounds and different walks of life. And there's a wide variety of people, the reason they came into the system. One were like me, where you wanted to kind of give back, have something with a little bit of significance. And it was time just to own my own business, right? Just where I was the boss, along with my wife, of course, but where I was the boss, and I could give something back to people in our hometown. Some people join because maybe they've been furloughed or laid off or lost a position, or quite honestly did early retirement, and they just need something to continue. And again, this is something where you can give back. And maybe for some, it's in a line of different businesses. Like me, I went from corporate to owning a business as a minority partner to becoming the owner of a Right at Home. So it was just kind of that natural step in growing process.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all types of owners, but the owners in the system genuinely have a story, and that story is, where have I been, where I've cared for family or no friends or people that needed care, and what can I do to be part of that industry or part of that process.
So you talked about being laid off and some people being furloughed and those kind of things. That's happening now, right? I mean, probably more so even if I go back 7 years, that would have been 2013 for you, right? When you joined the system. Does that sound about right?
2012, yeah, end of 2012, first of 2013.
So the 2008 crisis was, I mean, it was well on its way to being over, right? I mean, the stock market had come back, I think, a fair bit by that point. Without looking it up, I think that's where we were. So the folks now have had their hands. Some of them may have already had their hands forced. Some of them may just be looking ahead and trying to be proactive to get ahead of a layoff. Was that the case with you at all?
In my world, what we had done was we had we had built our business. It was a bakery, commercial bakery. I was a minority owner. And we had an offer. A investment group wanted to buy us. They offered me the opportunity to stay, but if I didn't stay at the level they wanted me to stay, then they said they didn't have anything for me. So I guess I was sold my business, but then I was downsized, right? So in my own way, I sold myself out of a job.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to go back to work somewhere, but I'd had that taste of being a minority owner, and gosh, I wanted to be the one that wanted to make all the decisions. So when my wife and I looked in our hometown of Waco, Texas, for an opportunity, we had kind of been led to this because my wife had started doing this type of care while we were living in Connecticut as a caregiver, just to get out of the house, because our kids were to the point they didn't hang with us anymore, high school kids and one in college. So she wanted to do something outside the house and just fell in love with doing the home care. So when we moved to Waco, Texas, we said, well, we want to own our own business. How could we own that type of business? What's involved with it? What can we do to give back to our community? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that having that heart for the business is such a core philosophy of our whole network. Whether it doesn't really matter what industry people come from, what their backgrounds are. We have a lot of different varieties at this point, with almost 500 territories operating in the U.S. and that's about 300 or so unique people. So it doesn't really matter what their background is. That what you just talked about with your wife and you wanting to give back, that is the common theme amongst all of our franchisees. They've either been impacted in some way by aging issues in their own family, or they've at least somehow seen how services like this can just make the community a better place. And so I think that for those that are on the call today, and those that are listening on the recorded basis, I think that's something that's an important factor to consider. This is a place where you really, you right at home, you need to want to be in this business, right? I mean, I would put this business up against any other one when it comes to returns and all those kind of things. But if you don't want to be here, it's not the business for you, right? You really need to want to help people in order to be in this business. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. You have to care for people to want to do this.
Yeah.
And some people are hands-on care. Some people are, finding the right support for care. But you really got to care for people and their stories and their struggles to really enjoy being in-home care and assistance with Right at Home.
So I'm going to change gears a little bit. You're I was going to say you're a little bit unique. You're a lot unique. So because you owned a business before, most of our franchisees, this is the first business that they've ever owned. And so I'm just wondering, from your perspective, you've owned an independent business, you've owned a franchise business. I want to focus on Right at Home for this question. How was owning a Right at Home different from working at Bluebell Ice Cream or any of the other jobs you've had?
Obviously in the corporate structure, Bluebell Ice Cream or in the bakery that I owned, we were it. We were our own experts. We had to go out there and find information. We had to go out and build our processes. We had to figure out policies. We had to do our procedures. We had to learn what we were doing, maybe from some industry help, maybe from some groups out there, but we're in a very competitive environment. Well, we're Right at Home being a franchisee. I said at my age, not that I was advanced age, but at my age, about 49 years old when I bought my Right at Home, I really needed an expert in my corner. Did I honestly look at opening a in-home care without a franchise? I briefly, but then so much is involved with it that you really needed that support structure that you get with a franchise. I mean, the policies, procedures, the last minute emails, the phone calls, the subject matter experts, because this is just too difficult a process to get involved with without somebody in your corner. So imagine you're, at least in a franchise world, you're getting to open a business and you have this whole group of people behind you that can provide guidance that you don't have in just any business or any startups and things like that. It's just, that's why the franchise to me was the best way for us to enter into this field, but also the best way for us to start into a business, because they've done the analytics, they've done the math, they know what's successful and what's not successful, and you couple the franchisor's experience along with the 300 and something unique franchisees that become your friends and your board of directors, so to speak, and it really is a great system.
I mean, does it feel different, going from being the employee to being the employer? Like, do you I don't know, when you think about the businesses you've owned and compare those to being an employee of a business, how does it feel knowing that you kind of own the joint?
Well, it does become a little bit more of a 24/7 cycle, right? You think about it all the time. You're enthralled by it. You're interested by it. You Google everything about it. You read everything you can find. You find experts. So you kind of really immerse yourself in the home care process, probably more so than I would have when I was in the ice cream business or the bakery business. Not that those weren't also somewhat immersive. In this case, it's a little different because you're also very much focused on profit and loss and success and culture that you are building yourself. Owners build their culture within their office, obviously with assistance from Right at Home, but you're really what the owner pushes to be. There's I don't want folks to think that a franchisee tells you everything, a franchisor tells you everything to do. Mm-hmm. You as a franchisee have a lot of autonomy, and that autonomy will flow in culture and success based on how you build your teams and how you approach this industry and the work you're doing.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we had a couple of other people join us. So if you weren't here at the top of the call, just remember that you can, I don't think we said this anyway, you can ask questions here. We're talking with Right at Home former franchisee Jon Searles, who also currently works for our corporate office as an employee. And so if you've got a question, just click on the, I think it says Q&A at the bottom of your screen if you've got a question for Jon. So, okay, so I mean, we've talked about kind of how it feels to be the owner versus the employee. Are there any, and you before that you were talking about the differences, how it what are the differences between being employed versus being the employer? If you think about your experience with Right at Home, are there any similarities to your corporate world experience?
In my world, there was, because I managed lots of people in my
Yeah.
corporate job. So
Yeah.
I'm managing lots of people now.
Yeah.
So that, and then although I was involved with P&L at my corporate job, I am the P&L in my with my Right at Home. So obviously it was different, but it also was this type of job that immerses yourself in your community. Whereas when I went to a manufacturing facility, that's where I was all day, 5, 6, 7 days a week inside that system of a plant, right? A manufacturing plant. With Right at Home, you're immersing yourself in your local community, the Chamber of Commerce's, the meetings, the churches, the government. I mean, it really is a great place to be if you want to be in the middle of your community, meeting other business people and knowing what's really going on outside the four walls of any office. So that's kind of one of the largest things I really enjoyed was instead of just grabbing a bag and going to the corner of the lunchroom, I now would go out with friends to lunch and contacts, referral sources, client families. It was really a much better system for me.
So, I mean, I know that a lot of the franchisees refer to us as corporate, right? So how does it how does it feel being a franchisee, but also having the franchisor's brand on your shirt there and having it on your business, on your business cards? I mean, is that like, as a franchisee, did you feel like you called the shots and you made the decisions? I mean, did you feel independent but with support of a franchisor, or how did that, maybe compare contrast that a little bit with the independent business?
Well, when I started, and this is where I made my mistake in my startup, right? My mistake was I'm going to do this myself. So give me the tools. I'm going to go out and build a Right at Home in-home care and assistance business. After about a year and a half, I realized there's so much there that I spoke of earlier behind me that can help if I would just pick up the phone and call, right? So I started to engage. I started to engage with the system. I started to engage with their owners. I started to engage by volunteering for programs that corporate was reaching out and saying, hey, anybody want to give this new vendor a try, or try this new line of service, or try this new approach to services. And I started saying yes to those and started really getting more involved in what was going on, because the franchisor is giving you all the tools and allowing you to turn and run it the way you want to run it. They would love for you to do it with them right there in your corner the whole time. But you can have the autonomy if you want it. But my first year and a half, almost 2 years, I should have instead stopped and said, hey, what can I do with them? What can they do for me and with me? And I eventually entered what we call a performance group, which is your peers. You get together and talk, which was fantastic. And then on top of that, I served on our FAC, which is our Franchise Advisory Council, which again was a great opportunity to see the inner workings, because it really is great the way the franchisor in this case takes advisory approaches to their owners. Their owners can sit down with them on a variety of councils, variety of issues, variety of strategic groups to say, listen, this is what we see in the industry. Because again, not only do we look back at the franchisor to say, okay, help us do this, help us do in-home care and assistance, you guys are the subject matter experts. We become the community expert, right? We're the ones out there in the community as a franchisee learning our communities. And every community is a little bit unique. There's people probably going to watch this and say, well, you guys don't understand what Tupelo, Mississippi is like. You don't understand what Bakersfield, California is like. You don't understand what Virginia is like.
Right.
We all have that same story. So we're able to look back at the franchisor and give them some insight into our communities and what's going on in our areas.
Yeah.
So it really is getting involved with the franchisor in this case that was my mistake in the beginning. But then when I got involved, everything seemed to just flow so much better during those final 5 years of ownership.
So you brought the performance groups up, so I want to ask you about that. And I love hearing about these groups, because I think if we were to survey, which we do actually, when we survey the franchisees every year and we ask them, how we're doing, we've gotten lots and lots and lots of positive feedback about these peer groups that you mentioned. And so we've got about 9 minutes left, so we don't have time to go all the way in depth to it. But maybe if you could just take a minute or two and describe, what it is, how it works at a high level, and then maybe the thing you enjoyed most about it.
Well, as a group, we become accountability partners. So 4 times a year, 2 phone calls and 2 face-to-face meetings, we'll get together and discuss business metric, key performance indicators. We'll compare ups and downs, highs and lows with our contemporaries in different markets. In my world, I'm in Waco, Texas, but I had people in my performance group that were from Philadelphia, from Atlanta, from California. They were all over the United States. So again, we get that one-on-one contact of what working for people, what's not working, what's a great idea, what's a burning issue. And again, they become that smaller advisory group that helps you find answers or make it through the obstacles in home care. And it's fantastic, and it's very financially focused as well. So we can make sure the metrics we're hitting as far as revenue and expenses, and how are they paying for rent, how are they paying for insurance, because we're all on the same board and kind of looking at our P&Ls together.
So let's change gears for a minute here. I want to talk about your research process when you went through the process to figure out what business you were going to own when you ended up buying the Right at Home. Some folks have talked about having certain criteria, establishing that up front as they did their search. Either I want to be home based, or I want to be in an office, or I want to be in a retail location. And do I want a small investment, or do I want a larger investment? And so there's all kinds of different criteria, and then tasks that you would do during the day and what you would need to be good at it and all that kind of stuff. Did you do any of that? Did you have any criteria that, you and Terry sat down and just said, boy, if we could find a business that did this, this, and this, that'd be perfect? I know you talked about she already had, been doing that kind of work up in Connecticut when you lived there. I don't know how big a scale that was, but I mean, was that the criteria in the very beginning? Was it like, okay, we're definitely gonna get into a caregiving business, or did you have other criteria?
Well, we wanted a business that we could be proud of, something that would give back to the community, that we'd be proud of. We didn't necessarily want to open a restaurant, or we didn't want to do a huge investment. We just come out of a successful business venture and sold it. You didn't want to take everything and leverage it against a new venture. And so it was economical. We wanted an office away from home, although everybody's working from home now. At the time, we had an office away from home. We wanted to be more community focused. And unusually, we also wanted to sell something within 5 years. We wanted to build it and be able to sell it within 5 years. So we had to find something that moves kind of fast. Now, we sold after 7, not because our 5-year goal didn't meet, but because we just really enjoyed the business that much that it was even a little bit bittersweet when we did sell, because we did enjoy it. We had a great base. And in fact, the new owner now is doing a very good job continuing our mission of taking care of. But we had those definite things. And it was a good time for us to start the business because all our children were grown through college. And it was a good time for us to be able to kind of, put extra time into it, take a little bit of disposable income and be able to risk it on a new business. But, if this was risk, it wasn't the type of risk as if you're just going to go open up a door and put your name on it and try to do something. I think the risk is much lower, and that's my opinion, not necessarily from the actual, but it all goes well. It all went very well.
That kind of gets into our last category here as we go through the next 5 minutes or so. I want to talk about exit strategy with you a little bit. So you mentioned that you had initially established this 5-year timeline. I'm curious to know, Was it definitely going to be a franchise? You know, when you sold out of the other business and you got into this one, you know, was it going to be a franchise no matter what, or did you look at any other independent opportunities? I know you said you looked at home care independently, but was there anything else? And then the second thing, what was the magic in the 5 years?
Well, we looked for a wide variety of things, and some things just are rate limiting steps. You just can't do it. You can't, like I was into manufacturing, right? And I couldn't spend $5 million starting a new manufacturing plant and hope that I have a return on investment in 10 years, right? If I'm lucky. I didn't want to buy someone else's family restaurant because again, the family is what built that restaurant, right?
Right.
There was, not there. So if you're going to do a restaurant, okay, we'll franchise. So it would make sense, right? But at the time, the only franchises I knew of sold hamburgers and hot dogs. That was what a franchise was. People don't realize that franchise also goes into other industries. So when we started looking for that type of thing, we used a broker in our case, but we gave a list of this is what we want. This is kind of the investment we're willing to do. Give us some options. And they gave us some options. This just kind of fell right in line with what my wife was doing and fell right in line with the type of business, both from a cultural standpoint, from a community standpoint, and from a financial investment standpoint that just made sense. And that exit strategy was such that we wanted something that we could build, grow, and sell. Mm-hmm. Obviously, make some money doing it. We want to make money during those 5 years, but also want to make money when we sell it. That would make sense. So that's kind of the focus of how we built our business. Now, this is a secret. I didn't tell the franchisor I was going to sell in 5 years, but I do know now that they would not have cared because what they want are good people in the system, whether they keep them short term or long term. They'd love to have them long term, but it's one of those type of things where it was a personal decision between me and my wife to build that kind of business, and it actually ended up going quite well. That whole exit strategy, again, now that I've reached my 57th year, it worked out just really well overall because we had moved here near my wife's parents, and it's now allowed her to spend more time with family. And then I got an opportunity with Right at Home Corporate that just kind of came out of general discussions, and that's where I am today.
Well, folks, we're about ready to wrap up with Jon. I got one more question for him here. If you have anything that you'd like to have him answer, now would be a good time to put that out there in the Q&A function within Zoom. So, Jon, as people are listening here to the call today, and folks are listening later on a recorded basis, what advice would you offer them as they contemplate business ownership?
Yeah. Well, I would do your research and everything. It's one of those things where you'll meet Eric and his team, and what I'll say, they make it sound good, right? And we're always in our world a little bit worried about something that sounds so good. But ask the questions. I went into what we call Discovery Day, and I asked every question you could possibly ask. There was not a stupid question, although maybe Eric thought some of mine weren't great. But I asked every question I possibly could because it is the investment of my family's money into a business. And so I would say ask every question you can. Don't leave any stone unturned. Do your due diligence. Know what you're getting into. This is not one of those where you buy a business and you sit at home and wait for it to earn money, because it does take some work. But it really is a rewarding process, a rewarding work as you grow in this field. There's so much to learn in this field. So it's a learning process as well. But if it is a great business to get into, and I do think it's a lasting business. Everybody's trying to get to where they want to live at home longer. They want to live at a level of quality of life that they need, and we're able to provide that.
Yeah, and I think now, we're doing this. We've all become Zoom experts here in the last 6 months, but I'd be remiss without at least acknowledging the pandemic, and it's affected everybody. It's affected all of us. We'll never be the same again. But boy, there were some scary moments out there, and still are, for some of those other industries where they're not providing the care that we are. Right, we're part of the solution to this problem, and I just think that I feel bad for some of the folks out there who do have businesses that just weren't able to be open during this time.
Right, and we're an essential part. You just can't stop caring for people even during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
All right, buddy. Well,
been
listen,
blessed.
we're at time, and I don't see any questions here. So thanks so much, as always. Appreciate your time and your thoughts, and I'll be talking to you again next week.